What's going on, guys? Hawk here, and today I know I'm doing something different, but I'm going to show you guys how to make what I think is the world's first ever bearing drive car with double wishbone suspension. Um, it works pretty well, as you can see. I don't know if you guys want a demo, but I think I'm going to get right to it. So first I'm going to show you guys how to build it, and if you want to stick around, I'm going to tell you why it was kind of harder to build and what exactly the point of it is. Uh, and first of all, I want to start off with saying it's not extremely easy to make materials-wise. I'll be showing you the materials list right now, and you can see it's not really an early game thing. It's you can make it, I'd say, probably pretty soon if you focus all your resources into it. But it's gonna help you a lot in the long run. If you've been playing a lot, you know that in the later game it's still hard to get that much oil, which is the point of a bearing drive car, is that it doesn't need gas or batteries. Um, and yeah, I just added some wishbone suspension to it, and it works pretty well. So I'm gonna show you guys how to build it. So first thing you want to do is, ideally you want to use a really heavy block because it'll weigh the car down and the tires will get more grip. So I'm using tier 3 concrete. You can use whatever you want, I guess. And so first you want to go make a 4x16, which is just 4 and then dragging your thing out as far as you can. And then what you're going to want to do is do this with pipes. So you want to make a little bit of a, I don't know, this is not really a shape. I don't know what shape this would be. And then you want to put bearings on the end of these pipes. Then what you want to do is put these pieces like this, and what we're building right now is going to be the front because it's a lot less complicated to make than the back, because obviously the drive systems are in the back. And then we're going to want to turn this and have this, it's like kind of a, I don't know, bumper type shape. And then you want to put bearings just like this. And then you want to take your I don't know, cross piece, your T-junction, whatever you want to call it, and you want to put one on the bottom like this on both sides. And then you want to take a piece going down like this. And then you want to take another T-junction and have it facing out like this. And then with this one, you're going to face it upwards like so. And then you're going to take your sport suspension and put it like that. And then for here, this is pretty simple. So what you want to do is just kind of come down, and then this bearing right here is going to be for steering, and then put another pipe facing this way, and then put a regular piece, and then your bearing, that's what your wheel is going to be connected to. And do the same over here. So regular piece going down, bearing for steering, another L. Oh, can I get this in here? I'm on a lift. I could just do that. There we go. Oh, I didn't even place it. Oh my god. Wow. Okay. Ideally, you're a better builder than I. And then you just want to have this shape. And then you're going to want to come up here to the suspension. And you're going to want to come back like this. And then put a bearing. Most of these bearings are going to be free floating. And they seem kind of useless. But trust me, they all have a purpose. And then you want to put, so you have your piece that comes back, your bearing on it, and then your piece that comes in, like this. And then you want to come back again with your elbow connector, and then you want to put a bearing. And then you come down with the calm, dude. What the hell? And then you're gonna. Oh, I'm stuck under my lift. And then you see you have the elbow going back, a bearing, and then an elbow going downwards, and then you're going to want to connect that like that with another elbow. A lot of elbows used here, almost 100. Like that. Perfect. And that's, oh my god, can I? This is your front wishbone. It's pretty easy. Or double wishbone. And you can use you can put the stiffness at whatever you want. We are using concrete, so I like to put it at like 4. But generally keep it pretty low, otherwise it's not going to really act like suspension. But unfortunately, that was that was the easy part. So before I do anything with connections there, we're gonna move on to the back. So to make this easier to understand, I'm gonna first do the back pretty much exactly like we did it in the front. So we first start off with the 4 pieces coming like this, and then we have our bearings on the back of them like this, and then we come out with these elbows, and then we go 2 out like this, because it pretty much is a similar shape, but not quite. And then we come back again with the elbows, making this kind of bumper type shape, or wishbone, because that's what it is. That we don't want to put that there. It's supposed to be a bearing. 2 more bearings right there. Perfect. And let me bring this back down. Oh, hello. Let me bring this back down again. And it's going to be pretty much a similar thing. So we're going to have this T-joint right there, and then a T-joint facing out, and then your elbow coming down. And so you have your T-joint like this, T-joint facing out, and then your elbow coming down. And then you have your elbow coming up like this. Then you connect your sport suspension to it. And then this is going to change. What we do here is going to change, but I'm going to do it like this for the time being. So we would have it come down. You'd have your bearing for steering. Then you'd have that come out, and then you'd have another piece and a bearing. But that's not going to stay, okay? I'm just doing it to kind of make it easier, and also to repeat the shape we had before to make that shape make more sense. Just like that. And then we do still have to connect this up, so we come back from here, put a bearing, we come in, and we come across like this, and then we come back again with an elbow, and then we have another bearing, a lot of bearings, and then we come down, and then we have an elbow coming up from here, and a piece like this. And we're gonna, as I probably already said this, but we're gonna hit this with the weld tool. So now these 2 shapes are exactly the same, or mirrored, not exactly the same, but we don't actually want that. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come to either the front or back. Remember, they're mirrored, so it doesn't really matter. I think this kind of looks cooler as the front, so this is gonna be the back. And we're going to put 2 bearings here, 2 straight pipes, and then 2 more bearings. And then we're going to put 2 more straight pipes, and then we're going to put an elbow like this. And here's where we're going to change this. So let's take off this bearing, that straight piece, this bearing, that curved piece, and instead of this elbow going down, it's going to come back. And we're going to do the same on this side. So remove it up until this elbow, and then make the elbow go backwards, just like that. And then we're going to put a bearing at the end of this elbow, put a straight piece at the end of it, another bearing, and we're going to come down with an elbow piece. So now we're going to lift this up a little bit, and we're going to have another elbow piece going back, like this, on the end of these. And then for these, we're going to have the elbow piece facing the outer edge of each side. And then here's where the drive system comes in. So we're going to put a bearing on each side, and then an elbow, or not an elbow, just a regular straight pipe, and another bearing, and then another straight pipe, and another bearing, and another straight pipe, and another bearing. So do the same on this side. So you should have 4 straight bearings in a row. And then you're going to put another pipe. Okay, I did kind of lie about that though. So you're not going to put another pipe. This is going to be another T. Oh, did I not delete that? Hello, get deleted. This is going to be another T-junction. Facing back. Not like that. Like, oh my god, like that. And then we're going to obviously put another bearing here. Or not, it's not obvious, but you know, we are. And then put another elbow like that. And now what we're going to do is have an elbow facing outwards, like this. And then we're going to put our sport suspension again, like this. And then we're going to do this, gross. And then we're going to have another elbow facing in, and then an elbow facing like this, and your wheel, like that. Or your bearing for your wheel. So elbow in, elbow out, wheel. Just like that. And that's the framework. But obviously none of these bearings are connected right now. And this next part might be a little confusing. So first what we're going to do is actually connect the wheels to make this make a tiny bit more sense. So you want to be using big wheels, obviously. Let's just pretend that I don't need my lift right now. So the wheels are going to be going on this outside bearing like this. And what I find you can do is put another wheel on it to give it more speed, more traction, but then it makes it very thick. It's already pretty wide to begin with, so you know, you might not want to do that. But you can. And then what you're going to want to do is take your controller, and obviously I'm assuming you're going to be building this in survival mode, so you're going to need to have one level 10 controller and one level 4 controller. And not level 4. That's, oh my god, wow. One level 5, which is the max level with 10 connections controller. And I believe this can be level 3, which has 4 connections. I might be wrong, but basically you want one controller with 10 connections, one controller with at least 4 connections. So let's pretend that this back controller is our level 10. So we're going to connect these inner two bearings that are kind of, if I were to look at it like this, they were like on a flat plane. If I were looking at it like this, they're kind of vertical, right, as opposed to horizontal. And you want to make sure that the blues are going in the same direction. I'll have my blues going towards the front of my vehicle, because keep in mind this is the back. And then you want to take the same controller and connect it to the next bearing on both sides, and then one more bearing right next to that on both sides, and one final bearing on both sides right next to that. And then you want to skip this bearing and do the bearing on the tire on both sides. Make sure the blue is in the right direction. So now we should be using all 10 connections. Click the loop, and then for every single one of these, you want to max it out to 360. Not the first one, because this is the preset, but on the first rotation that will happen once it's being activated by some kind of activation. And you want to make every single one here plus 360. Just like that. And that's our drive system, basically. And then for this next controller, you want to connect these inner bearings. And again, you want blue going the same direction. So let's say I'll have blue facing upwards, kind of. And then these bearings as well. Blue is facing down, so I want it to... Oh, wait. Yes, that's the right way. And this one is not the right way. There we go. So blue is facing inwards. Never mind. Wait, what? Yeah, blue is facing inwards. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not very good at this. Then you want to set your... it doesn't matter what speed it is, and it doesn't matter... It does matter. Don't put it on loop. You don't want it on loop. And then you want to set your preset to plus 15. And your first one that's not a preset to minus 45. And this is going to be your adjustable part. And then you're going to want to put a switch down. Doesn't really matter where. Let's put it on the back of this controller. And connect it to the controller that only has 4 connections to it. And then obviously you're going to want a driver's seat. And ours is 4 width, so use a 4 width driver's seat unless you don't want to. We can put that pretty much wherever. And you want to connect the switch to it, and then you want to connect the back controller that has 10 connections to it. And that's pretty good. And we could leave it at this. This is drivable. Never mind. Okay. So I did say earlier... Wow, that's kind of embarrassing. Wow. Where's my lift? I did say earlier we had to come back and hit this with the weld tool. And I was not lying. So let's do that. Grab a weld tool. And you want to just make sure, like, everything... You can't, obviously... It's hard to mess this up because you can't weld stuff that's, like, connected by a bearing together. So you're probably not going to break this as long as you're just welding stuff that makes sense to be welded together. So you kind of just want to go around and just check everything. Mine might not be the same welds as yours because we might have placed these blocks in a different order. But generally, just make sure everything is in one piece. That's not. That is. Obviously, that's only one block, so that's going to be in one piece. That should be connected to there. This should be. Here, I gotta get on this side. This should be connected there. That's connected. That is connected, I think. And that's not. So now when we take this off, the lift. Yes, this is. Wow, embarrassing. So we forgot to connect the steering. Classic me, not connecting the steering, guys. This is the steering bearing, right? So you have, this is the front of the vehicle, and you have your wheel and the bearing connected to the wheel, and then the next bearing that if you were looking at it, it would be on a flat plane on the x-axis, and then you connected that straight to the driver's seat on both sides, and then obviously flip the steering. Okay, I apologize for all that. It's rideable now. So we steer, move forward, move backwards, and ooh, let's not crash. Okay, yeah, okay. It can be a little framey, especially the first time you build it and put it in your world. But here we are. This is it. So obviously we need to tweak our suspension. Let's move it up by 2 because the creation is just a little too heavy for this suspension. Is that too high? I think. There we go. That's good, I think. So only move these 4 suspensions that are going vertical. Okay, that should be just fine. And now this is completely drivable, and this will work very nicely. And obviously, if you press your switch, you can go down or up or whatever you want to do. And that's great. What I do recommend though is you can stop watching here. This is the complete build. But what you can do if you are later on in the game and you have a little bit of oil to spare, I suggest making it a hybrid and putting your front 2 wheels on a gas engine or electric engine. Doesn't really matter. And you can put this at like really whatever power you want. Maybe 3. I'll do 4. It really doesn't matter what power your gas engine is on, because it's just a secondary engine to help with grip, and it makes it a much better rock crawler as well. But as you can see, our suspension is working very nicely. I'm not a very good driver, but it's it's working as it should. Except I'm noticing something here. I missed a weld. Where was it? Is it this? I know I missed something. I don't know where it is though. Well, obviously I don't know where it is because I missed it. Yeah, so you just want to make sure your welds are correct. But yeah, this is it. This is the whole complete thing. Now it's a hybrid. I don't know where I was before, but I think I was back here. I'm not sure. Where was I? I have another vehicle. I'll just spawn it in with a lift. Okay, or just smash myself in the face with this. Here we go. And I put some lights on it. That's all. Nothing special. Just gave it a paint job, put some lights, made it look cool with pipes and everything. But yeah, that's about it for this. And if you want to keep watching, I'm going to tell you about how I did it, why it's helpful, and yeah. But thanks for watching, and hopefully you enjoy the car. Okay, so if you stayed this long, you're curious about something, so I'm just going to start from the beginning. The way a bearing drive system works is it's basically a gear system. So, is this linked up? Oh, it's not. Wait, it is. When I flip this, it should be. What? Oh, it's on the lift. My head ass. I mean, what? Okay, so, all this is, so this bearing is just turning, when we tell it to turn with the switch, which is basically what's happening here, except we just made a gearing system, or a gear ratio with these bearings. So this bearing will turn this pipe, and this next bearing is on the pipe. So before we had, here, let me just put this here. Let me connect both these, and if both these are set to 360, and then this also. Okay, so why is this? I don't know why this is going, but whatever. So as you can see, the second one spins twice as fast as the first one, because this bearing is spinning this, that's just the pipe is spinning. But this time, the bearing is spinning the pipe, which is spinning the bearing, so this bearing is moving this pipe twice as fast. And that's all a gear ratio is a gear is basically moving another gear faster, so that that gear can move the next gear faster, and eventually you can just put a wheel on it. And if we do 5 bearings here, so this bearing moves at regular speed, this next bearing is moving at twice the speed, and this next bearing is moving at twice that speed, this one twice that speed, and this one is freestanding, and this one twice that speed. So the wheel is moving so much faster than this first bearing. So it's completely free energy, and yeah, it's super cool and really great for survival because, as I said, it's free. Yet again, I'm combining 2 phrases. So anyway, it's really simple, and that's the bearing system. And now I'm going to tell you about double wishbone suspension. So this right here is regular suspension, right? Let's just set the stiffness to like whatever. So all that happens is the suspension will compress when it's pushed on, instead of just being completely stiff like a regular block. And this is good, except when you press on it at an angle, it's still compressing just straight up. And then the wheel will be lifted off the ground, and you'll have much less grip, much less traction, and also then now you've got a wheel in the air, you might get stuck on something, and it's just not, oh, okay, let's not break this. It's not as ideal of a situation. It's not really, it's only suspension from like one angle basically, because the coil is only facing one direction. So if you push on it on that direction, the suspension is going to be just as good as a double wishbone suspension. But double wishbone suspension basically makes this work everywhere. So I'll be back. I'm going to build a double wishbone suspension and show you what I mean by that. Okay, so now what I have here is, if you'll notice, it's the exact same design we used on the car. And if I push on this, the suspension is still compressed. I don't want to, it's kind of hard to do because I don't want to break it, obviously, with my lift. But the suspension still has the same degree of compression. And yet the wheel is, ideally, this lift is less strong. But it's kind of hard to tell because the lift is breaking it. But this bar is staying completely straight, completely flat. So the wheel is always going to be on the ground. It's kind of hard to tell with the lift, but that's the point of double wishbone suspension. And the way it works is simply we have this suspension right here, and we have, these are what's called the wishbones, where it's a bar that can rotate, and it's two bars so they kind of keep themselves in place. And then we have the bars connecting to the wheel. So this bar is basically like it's being held in place by these two bars, and also this bar, which is connected to a bearing, so it can't move, and it's at an angle. Otherwise we would have just had it flat, but it's good to be able to have it at an angle. It's also adjustable that way. So this bar is staying in place. This section right here, I can't use my weld tool because it's not on lift, but this section right here, I don't know how to highlight it, is not going to move. Neither is this section, or this section, because it's connected to the actual vehicle, or whatever you have it on. But then the second we put a bearing here, this suspension is now kind of, it's free-floating, right? It can rotate, it can swing like this, right, because of this bearing. Except then this suspension is connected to these two bearings. So now, for this suspension piece to rotate like a pendulum, these would need to be pushed in, which it can't. And these can't move inwards. So basically, this suspension piece is no longer going to make your wheel be off the ground, or not flat. But then, the reason these can go up and down is so that you can actually still use your suspension. Otherwise, because you could just attach it so that it's not going to move like that, but then it won't be suspension. So we need to have these be on bearings as well. So these will move, obviously, as you can see, up and down with as the suspension compresses. And it's pretty simple. It just looks a little bit complicated with all the bearings and stuff. And but yeah, it's really helpful and really easy to make, I think. And finally, I'm going to show you what I did to combine them. So as you can see on the car we just built, we combined, this is the bearing system, where this bearing rotates this, which rotates this bearing twice as fast, and that's the drive system, and normally this would be connected straight to the wheel, but we need to make the double wishbone suspension. Oh, it's this. This is not connected to, where is this not? Just hold on, let me put this on lift so I can fix this really quick, because obviously that's not how it's supposed to work. I hate this new connect tool bug that's happening. It's this. Boom, fixed it, perfect. Alright, that feels good. Okay. Let me take this off the lift now. So, we need to, connect tool, please. Okay. We need to connect, this drivetrain to the suspension. And if you see in the front, normally making cars with double wishbones is pretty easy. You just build the wishbones and then connect the engine right to the wheel. But if you want to have an engine that doesn't use fuel, you have to make it yourself, either like a piston engine or a bearing drivetrain like we did. So you can't just connect this randomly. And obviously, if we were to put bearings on this, then all of a sudden nothing in this double wishbone can rotate. So we had to kind of combine the two. So in this game, suspension is not a full block. You can so this suspension piece is transparent, right? Things can move through it, blocks can move through it. And to just show that off really quick, just like that. So this we have the bearing drive system rotating this T-piece, which is connected to the curve. So this whole assembly is going to rotate, and then this is used to kind of connect the wheel through as this rotates into this L piece, which was the only workaround I could think of. So, excuse me. Oh my god. So then we have this piece connected to another couple elbows, so that this bearing is free floating. So this is just rotating, and it's rotating. It's still keeping the amount of rotation from this bearing, and this elbow is rotating just as fast as a regular piece, as one of these would, after the fourth bearing. And then we just put it on the fifth bearing, so it's still the same amount of speed that you're getting, and now we're able to move through a block. So what we use this whole thing for is we basically we made the double wishbone, and then we connected it to another couple free-floating bearings. So if you notice, these bearings are on the same kind of plane as these ones. So this, as this goes up, hold on, let me get out something that's not gonna make it hard to see. As this goes up, and it doesn't really because the lift is a little wonky, but this whole bar with the wheel on it needs to rotate. So this bearing allows that part to rotate, and then we have to have another bearing here to allow the wishbone to do what it does with the suspension, and we have to have these bearings here to kind of counteract that, because if we had only this, then it's not good. It's still going to be locked out. It has to have another free floating joint to actually work correctly. So now that's kind of that's it. That's the workaround. And now we're able to, as you see, the suspension goes through those elbows on the back here. I don't know if we can zoom in. So the camera's a little wonky, but they're going through, and they're keeping the speed. So the wheels are still rotating like they would if 5 bearings were pushing them normally, and the suspension is still working as it should, as you can see. We kind of like press down a little bit. So yeah, that's the kind of the workaround. So we have the best of both worlds, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this is going to be helpful for you guys, and yeah, I'm Hawk, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.